everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar. As always, I am your host. And after pain in Paisley came misery in Motherwell. Rangers not getting beat, I suppose, which is a very, very cold comfort indeed. After yet another dismal first half performance, it means Rangers have taken 1 point out of 6 over the festive period. Joining me to discuss the match is Cammy Bell. Hello, Cammy. We've seen this too often, haven't we?
Just a bit. I was going to say thanks for having me on, but I don't know how sincere I am with that. But listen, no, as always, it's a pleasure to talk about all things Rangers, David, and we don't stop in Heart and Hand whether things are up or down.
No, we don't, and at the moment they are quite down. Now, let's just, the elephant in the room, let's just get the spotlight on it straight away. I think he's too far gone now. I don't think Philippe Clement will be there. And I've been up and down with it. I thought after Dundee United, that was it. He was done. There was a recovery, but it's ended again. And it just seems to constantly be like this. The team can pull out a couple of results here and there, or a couple of performances here and there, but then we'll lapse back into this. And the same issues keep coming up, Cammy. Our away record this year is dismal. We don't score enough goals away from home. We have lost half our away matches this season. And more importantly, it's not about what I think, but the general feeling among the Rangers support that I can see, right? And I'm in a fortunate position. I get to talk to an awful lot of Rangers fans as part of what I do. I just think there comes a point where a manager is too far gone and there's no belief in him. And it then becomes virtually impossible to make that comeback because the support are almost waiting for another kick in the proverbials. And that's where I think we are just now. There's no trust that he's going to be able to deliver what we need him to deliver. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. The eternal optimist in me thought that we had been able to produce a few good results and we had a team that looked like it could click and it could respond well when the chips were down and see out games against strong competition. This is going to sound a bit ironic because ultimately we did lose the final, but you could see some of that in the game against Celtic at Hampden because, you're coming back from having led, having missed a great opportunity, then you go 2-1 down and then you pull that back and then we get the last minute equaliser and we see through, extra time with a really strong effort. And I thought, well, in almost those individual instances, there's almost some, growth spurts that you could see in terms of people's overall belief in the manager. People were starting to come back. And I was at Fir Park yesterday. I'll be honest with you, David. I think you chaps said it well on our Patreon site that the challenge that most people had coming into the ground yesterday was that when they saw the starting lineup, there was already big issues. We'll talk about some individual players shortly, I'm sure, but while we're focused on the manager, I'm very worried across a number of things for him at the moment. The first one primarily is that after a terrible performance in Paisley and a poor result and our away form in the league at the moment, that is the starting lineup he goes with. There's some major issues there as far as I'm concerned. I understand the sports science, I understand everything else as well, but at the end of the day, that starting lineup was unacceptable. And then you listen to his comments after the game. If I was one of his players listening to that, I'd be like, I don't know how much longer he's going to be here. And listen, that's football, right? We understand that. Players can kind of start to see where there's going to be some changes. So how much they believe in him now, I'm very curious to see. The big problem we have more than anything else is that we can't go through this cycle of having a good result, whether it's in Europe or an upturn domestically for a few games or some good performances, and then it just reverts to type. And my huge overall worry is that the type at the moment is poor performances, take out 1, 2, 3 key players out of a side, and you are going to be up against it domestically against the majority of our league opponents. And that's before you get to Celtic. So he needs to. I don't even know if there is a hat big enough that he could pull a rabbit out of now to be able to move the Rangers support back to him. If he wins on Thursday, it will help with some, but I think the league table doesn't lie, and I don't think a lot of people will change their beliefs on that.
No, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. We'll start off. I mean, I'm not excusing the players, by the way, who've seen off a few managers now. And at the moment, it looks as though they're going to see off another one. So, in case anyone thinks I'm giving them a free pass, I'm absolutely not. There are players in that dressing room who need to go. Said it long enough. Tav said all season, said it in the summer. That was one season too many. He should have left. And we're seeing it now. But if players down tools, unfortunately, we're not the only club in the world that happens at, Cammy. We've seen it before with a manager. But you're right, the manager needs to try and help himself as much as he can. Only he will know if he prioritised the Celtic game ahead of these two matches with the team selections. But we're not good enough to do that. And we certainly, it should have been proved from Paisley that we're not good enough to make those sort of changes to the side. Yesterday, he said he went with the sports science, which is something that a manager should consider. He said that he actually went back and forth on this in the press conference afterwards. He said that the players had told him that they were feeling tired, and then he said that players don't tell you they're feeling tired, but you see it. And he decided to go with the team that he went with. I've mentioned this before, that I feel like a pick on Kieran Dowell. The boy's not a Rangers player, right? Never in a million years. There's an argument so far that he hasn't proved himself to be even an SPFL level player because his contribution is virtually nil. And unfortunately, he produced exactly what the supporters knew he was going to produce yesterday. The team starts games so badly so often, particularly away from home. That was another one yesterday, tepid, slow, need to get the halftime rocket and the changes before anything is done in the second half. It just looked like an almighty gamble to me. Now, there are some that are forced on him, the defence, for example. I understand that. But bringing in Dessers, who, let's be honest, is never going to be a guy who leads a line for a successful Rangers team. But on top of which, Cammy, he's clearly shit out of confidence at the moment. So what do you think he's going to bring to the side? Then you put in Dowell, who did what he usually does and gets subbed after 45 minutes, which is nothing. I get that you want to make changes, but what's the point of making those changes when you know, or you should know, because you've had plenty of evidence that what you're putting in isn't going to work, is only going to cause problems?
Yeah, that's fair. Kieran Dowell is so far away from being a Rangers player, I struggle to see what he could produce for any team, if I'm being honest. I don't like that harsh criticism, David. I try to be fair and I try to be positive when I can maybe see that there's some degree of growth. Kieran Dowell is dead in the water as far as I'm concerned. For whatever reason, despite the fact that he attends the B team games and gives instructions to rest certain players because they'll be playing for the first team, none of those players will feature. And he clearly, and he's done this before with other players, right? You know, he should have dropped Tav well before he did, and he's got a blind spot for them. You're right, there's some changes which are enforced, and I think all of us understand that. What Kieran Dowell brings, I've got no idea, but Kieran Dowell was one of the main focus points on the team sheet yesterday. I think for a lot of the fans to say we know what we're going to get from him, which is close to nothing. Put a youth player in there. I'm not saying that they're going to immediately play better. I'm not saying that, but they'll have the encouragement from the fans to be able to do that. It's almost as if the fans started at 0 and went downwards from there because they saw that lineup and they saw Kieran Dowell and they saw Cyril Dessers and they're like, this is going to be tough. I do appreciate that the manager has to take sports science advice on board. That doesn't mean that he has to rule by it. And the thing that probably just, I think, aggravates me more than anything else in that is that this is, as we've already said, another away game, but it's also following a really poor performance in St Mirren. So if those players come in, and I don't know if they're saying they're tired or not, because he, as you say, went backwards and forwards on that. But are you telling me that there was players who played in Paisley who walked off thinking, I've had the game of my life here, I've been absolutely fantastic, not a problem. If they go to the manager and say, look, I'm struggling a wee bit, blah, blah, manager can just turn around to him and say, well, in the last game you didn't play that well, so now you are playing and we do need to feature you. So that's the decision at the end of the day. Dessers, I think Dessers has monopolised our podcasts, the conversations online, the forums, social media more than any other Rangers player I think I've ever known. And again, it's the same, and you saw that within the opening minutes, he misses that great chance from that cross in by Ridvan, and you're just like, right, that's it. That's exactly what you're going to get from him today. And again, goes off at half-time, having contributed literally nothing. And there's a part of me that also wonders when I look at some of the players and the body language of some of the players, they looked like they had a spark in them. They were revitalised when they came in the second half. And maybe there's a part of that because they now know that to cause an effect, they're not really playing with two men down.
I think, believe it or not, some people might think that if you do a podcast, you think you've got all the answers. I don't. I just enjoy talking about Rangers. And you're totally free to disagree with me because I've been wrong plenty and I will be again in the future. I am not a professional coach, okay? So Philippe Clement knows more about football than I ever will, right? So did Pedro Caixinha, by the way. I admit that. I've not worked in professional football. I wouldn't be qualified to do so. But that makes what happened yesterday, I think, for any football fan, the biggest frustration of all, which is you look at something before the game starts and you say, here's exactly what's going to happen today. And then it does. And you think, well, if I can see that, and I'm an amateur, then why can't the manager? And why can't he do something to prevent that? That, I think, is the biggest frustration. Because you knew what you were going to get from certain players. Defensively, the manager said there were errors made, but they looked shocked, Cammy, at the way that Motherwell played. Motherwell play two up front. They play a big guy and someone who works off him who's quick. And given the wind and everything yesterday, they were going to hit it long. And what Rangers had to do was be alert to that and certainly be alert to second ball. And we were neither. And we get ourselves into this terrible position. The manager's forced to bring on two players. He'd said that the sports science, and he was forced, he had to bring on the two players in Czerny and in Igaman. And they end up playing, because of the injury time in the game, they end up playing 57 minutes anyway. So you judge a manager on their choices. And one of my pet hates is when people say, well, did you moan about the team before the game? Well, actually, I did yesterday, and most Rangers fans did. But that doesn't matter. We're not making the decisions, right? It doesn't matter if we were right or wrong. It matters who the decision makers are right and wrong. And you get judged on what happened. And yesterday, he's had an absolute mare. He picked the wrong side. He was forced to change it, which meant that the whole reason for leaving out our two best attacking players became invalid anyway because they didn't get a rest. If anything, they went on to a more frantic game when things were completely wild and had to play that full stretch of it. He just had a disastrous day. And look, I don't think Philippe Clement is a bad manager. Okay, I genuinely don't. But there are times in jobs you can be good at a job, but for whatever circumstances, it can get away from you. God, it's happened to me in my working life. Didn't mean I was particularly bad at the job, just the circumstances weren't right, or things had happened that I'd made a couple of bad decisions that meant I couldn't recover from them. And that is kind of where I think we are at the moment. And it's just hard because we keep stumbling. And because we keep stumbling, that makes it hard for fans to buy in when things do go well. Do you know what I mean? That if you have a good run of 3 or 4 weeks, when fans should be getting excited, we can't because we're like, well, but we know what happens. And that's what I mean about just the well gets poisoned and then there is no coming back from it. There is a point where I think you pass the point of no return, and I think we are past that now. Somebody said to me, well, if you beat Celtic, you'll be quite happy. I said, I'll be quite happy that we've beaten Celtic, but let's be honest, we'll still be 11 points behind them. It's fairly meaningless, unfortunately. And you cannot be a Rangers manager and be 14 points behind on January the 1st. You just can't.
There's elements to it where I think most of the fan base, and it is a yin-yang, right? Because I think the fan base accept the fact that, he's had, he's a victim of horrendous transfer dealings. Like very, very poor decisions. He's had a complete omni-shambles above him from the board level from the summer onwards. But we all accept that. We accept the fact that defence was fractured just because of injuries. And again, we accept that. We understand it. We suffered Cyril Dessers being our only option for nearly a year because we understood it. What we can't understand and where we really struggle to follow what the manager's doing is when he's been wedded to a system that doesn't work, when he selects starting lineups that he's forced to change at halftime and make subs to come on at the break because whatever he has started isn't going to finish. And also, I don't know how much he seriously understands how bad this away form is. If the way how he looks to me at the moment with the David is that he at times feels very cautious about it and selects a team to almost contain a little bit because he expects that home opposition will come out against this, which, by the way, they've got every single right to do. I'm not criticising that at all. But then other times he just seems so cavalier with it that you get what you got yesterday, and you pick a team that and this isn't the first time that he's done this, in previous circumstances where he feels tactically the better thing to do is start with a slightly weaker team and then strengthen it. And it's bitten him. And it's bitten him in the arse across the course of a number of games this season. And yesterday, there's no getting around it. His starting lineup, by the time we got to half time, cost us 45 minutes in that game. And, we were 2-0 down. And it's a minor miracle, to be honest with you, that we were able to turn it around in that way and salvage a point. Thought Motherwell were unlucky with a disallowed goal. I think it's that's one that could swing either way. But at the moment just now, he just seems so scattered in terms of his approach. It seems almost disparate in what he wants to be able to try and do with the plan is. And that, I think, for me, is where we really struggle to do it, because he could buy us in early doors if it was progressive, it was working. You saw Steven Gerrard doing that. And then people managed to get behind him, and then everyone was all in. At the moment just now, even the real defenders of Philippe Clement, I honestly believe, from the people that I've spoken to, I know I've been right behind him even during previous criticism, struggle to tell me what the game plan is and what the strategy has been able to try and move forward. The default argument is almost, yeah, but let's get him to another window. And I'm like, okay, well, unless you're doing wholesale changes, which in its own more or less tells the support we're writing the season off, because we have to do all of these wholesale changes and allow players time to bed in, then anything we do between January and May will be fortunate rather than design. That's where I think that the fans just feel, I think you kind of mentioned it already in one of the shows, that it just feels now it's just a matter of time. There's just a ticking clock at the moment, and I don't think he can have such a monumental shift in the mood of the fan base.
There's a phrase that kicks about, which is it's a transitional season, right? Transitioning to what? The away form isn't improving. That's the thing. Overall we've lost 4 away matches. We've got a less than 50% record. Are we a significantly better side? No, we can play well in patches. Did it again yesterday, did it for a bit in Paisley, but we never seem to sustain it. The ongoing slow start hasn't been eradicated. So I get transitioning, but it should be surely transitioning to something positive, and I don't see that at the moment. To the game itself then, Cammy, the first 2 goals, I think with Robin Proper now, again, not a bad player, just so not cut out for this league, and looks to me like a guy who knows it and thinks, wow, I'm in the wrong movie here. Couldn't cope with the physicality of Motherwell's forwards in the first half. Our defending at both goals was dreadful. For the first goal, we don't deal with the initial high ball. We don't get first to the second ball. Then we stop claiming a handball rather than playing to the whistle. Then Butland's in no man's land and should do better with the finish. The second goal, yes, it's quality from the Motherwell striker. It really is excellent control and finish. However, we've got 6 players in the box. Tavernier might as well not be there for his challenge, and the rest of them just stand and watch him as he does it. It's piss poor.
Oh, it's so static. It's unbelievable. The first goal, my own personal umbrage with it is, it's a terrible header by Proper. I don't believe it's a handball, if I'm being honest, David. I wouldn't have, claimed it myself. I think that, given the distance and where it's going, there's nothing that you could do with it. Obviously, that moves into the next attacking phase of play. But our players are still static, claiming for it. And then by the time they realise that it's not going to happen, they are a yard, if not 2 yards, behind the Motherwell player who's able to pinch that space. And with his first touch, hit it by Butland. Sterling recovers a little bit of ground and tries to put in a slide tackle. Proper doesn't even try and make contact with the man. I don't mean to bring him down or, cause an issue. I just mean to just try and hamper him slightly and put him off. Doesn't even do that. Butland does the same thing that he did in Paisley, where he comes, he stops, then he goes and he commits and makes a complete hash of it. It's just a terrible goal to lose from a long ball up from the keeper, that because we look so poor and we look so fragile at the back, that you just take the gamble. Absolutely take the gamble. I don't blame any opposition team for doing it, because I would absolutely encourage it if I was playing against Rangers at the moment. We don't, and by the way, that's not contained purely to how we lost the goals. At this point in time, that defence looks so worried about being able to give the ball away when we were in possession. We are constantly playing safe balls all the time. That's all we want to be able to do. And we won't risk being able to try and play a forward ball, because then all of a sudden you're the guy who's lost it. So we'll give it to Yilmaz, we'll give it to Jeffy, we'll give it to Tavernier, we'll try and get it, away up the flanks to be able to do that, because there's space within there to operate. The second goal's a fantastic goal. Absolutely fantastic. It's a great turn with the flick of the foot, takes Tavernier completely out of the game, because Tavernier thinks that he's going to move over towards the right-hand side of the goal. Doesn't, cuts back inside, and it's a great finish right into the corner. I've got no issues with that. What I think's interesting about it, though, David, if you fast forward slightly to the Czerny opportunity, which is played off the line, what you see there is mobile Motherwell players still looking to be able to make an effective contribution to the defence. They're not static. They are still moving. And they do the right thing. They follow in with the ball. It beats the keeper, but there are players there to get it cleared off the line. There's just a massive disconnect in that defence at the moment, including Butland, by the way. They cannot be looking at themselves thinking that this is in any way good enough. Proper isn't suited for the game. I think that we've said that already. I tried my best to defend him when I saw an upturn, not just against Spurs, but domestically as well. He looked a little bit more settled, and I thought, okay, he doesn't look as panicky under the ball. And then obviously he goes and has the last couple of games that he's had, and yesterday was just a car crash from beginning to end.
He was.
He doesn't like it here. He doesn't like it.
Oh, Proper, yeah, but Butland yesterday had a nightmare. Got away with one in the second half. Now, I don't like that goalkeepers are so protected, but I wasn't surprised that it was blown for, and I wouldn't be surprised that if it was blown for when we attacked. The panel that reviews it has said 3-2 that they felt that it was incorrect. That's been released today. Cammy, you're a qualified ref. Your thoughts on the corner that Butland makes an arse of? Let's be quite honest about it. But there is an arm across him, and generally speaking, they get given.
They do. There is far too much protection.
I don't agree with it, but that does seem to be the rule.
but it's one of those laws that you have to obey, but you don't like it, and you have to abide by it. There's no two ways to get away. I think, again, same thing as well. I would be pressuring Butland at every opportunity. If I was an opposition striker, if I wanted to get in there and get in about, he's trying to monopolise his space a little bit, put him off, do whatever I could to hamper him. Yes, the arm's up and it's across him. How much it genuinely impedes him, I don't know. I think that mistake, if I'm being honest with you, is because he's shut out of form and confidence more than anything. That I think it was Tony Watt that was putting his arm across him. I think more than anything that an opposition player could do, because he makes a total hash of it. And I think that's more to do with his current form rather than anything that happened in that minute in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, I did say yesterday on our post-match that another ref might have given it. It was one of those ones that I don't think VAR would have changed whatever the ref had given. I think it was one of those 50-50 ones. So we got away with one, there's no doubt about it, and it certainly would have changed the match. I didn't see us coming back into it. The other one that was disallowed was offside, so that's just a factual one. But again, Butland really... I don't know what he's doing dealing with that. He completely loses the flight of it. And again, we're not live in the box when it happens. But Lennon Miller could have been sent off for a tackle. So maybe they got away with one back. But to the positive, which was, again, Czerny and Igaman. And there's a lot of talk at Rangers about the leadership group. Neither of them are in it. Leadership, to me, isn't running about screaming and bawling. It's not organising things within the dressing room. That's part of it. But leadership, to me, is when things are tough, demanding the ball and saying, I'll make something happen. And both of them did that yesterday tremendously well. Both of them, if I'm being totally honest with you, Cammy, I think they practically got us a point on their own yesterday.
Yeah, totally agree. And it's not just about Czerny wanting the ball. What I've been really impressed with Czerny recently is even when he's getting closed down, he can still find a man through the middle. Not necessarily a slide rule. I just mean being able to play a square ball that you're thinking he's just hitting hope, but he doesn't. He's able to find, whether or not it's a Raskin or Diamande or whomever, who's square with him and play it through a field of players to be able to do that. He's a very intelligent footballer, I think, David, in terms of he knows when to go, he knows when to be able to play the ball. Motherwell were clearly wise to him in terms of being able to cut in and hit a shot with his left. He was unlucky with one, although I personally think that might have hit the post, but he forced a good save from the keeper. Egerman is just, he's playing without weight at the moment. He doesn't have any of this baggage that I think some of the other players have had throughout the course of the season. And he's just playing like a free spirit. He's exciting to be able to watch in the ball. He rides a tackle well, but he maintains control with his feet whenever he is out on a flank, and he won't look to be able to just simply kick it off the player to be able to come back. He wants to keep the ball in play and he wants to keep it moving. There's an energy between them, which I think that when it comes on, and it's what I said earlier on, I think sometimes their teammates realise, right, here's a couple of guys that we know that can hurt them, that can do things. We'll do the hard jobs. They will do the work, off the ball. But yeah, I think I agree with you totally. I think that the two of them did salvage the point yesterday between the two of them. I thought Danilo was unlucky with a couple of chances, and again, some other subs which kind of came on that I don't know had as much as an impact as we would have liked, but those two definitely did. And listen, we will be fair. All praise to the manager for making the change at half time. He could have tried to stick with it for another 15 and make the changes on the half hour.
No,
I don't think he would have got away with it whatsoever. So obviously made the decision to just to pull them on at half time, and they had an immediate impact in the game.
Yeah, they did. Unfortunately, we couldn't go on and get the victory. And as I say, Cammy, it leaves us now in this morass. We're coming up to the Old Firm game at Ibrox, and yeah, it's difficult really to get particularly energised about it. It'll be different, as we get closer to it. It's an Old Firm game, but there is just a sense I feel of drift at Rangers because I think most supporters have made our mind up about the manager. What happens then is that you're just kind of waiting for what you believe is inevitable. And that might be wrong, but that is mentally, I think, what we do as supporters. And I just don't think he's got an awful lot of road to run left. So, really, if he wants to be here at the start of February, we've got two massive games coming up this week. I think he needs to win both.
He does. And listen, I've said before, and you've heard me say this, that for me, the big concern for me is that he hasn't passed a test. He needs to be able to beat Celtic in a competitive game, forgetting the away record, forgetting the points difference in the league, forgetting the drop-off since March. Rangers managers don't survive if you can't beat Celtic. They'll come full of confidence, and rightly so, why wouldn't they? If he's able to win these next two games against Celtic and Hibs, and if we are able to produce miracles in the transfer window. And by the way, I think that your point earlier on is totally valid. I think that we are now at the stage where we are going to be telling players to leave in January, rather than some who we gave the option to previously and they chose not to go. And then obviously what the board can back him with in terms of finances. I think you and I have spoken about the fact that it'll likely be loans, which again I can understand if that's going to be the case. But right now, if we want to use that old cliche, he's fighting for his job at the moment. He has to instill that within the players, and if the players do still believe in him, then they'll turn up and they'll create their performances. We will see what happens in the next 180 minutes worth of football if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, we will. Look, I'm desperate for this to beat Celtic because it's been too long, and I want to enjoy that feeling again. And I want the team to go out there and deliver us something to give us a bit of hope for the new year. I do think there's going to be changes afoot. We've seen it. Rangers announcing, well, not announcing, but it's in the press that another addition to the executive team. Patrick Stewart's moving on that quite quickly, and I just think that it's now all about putting together a winning team that can be successful for next season. And that does mean using this window, as you say, to cut out some dead wood, to get in people who can produce towards the future for Rangers. And these are the important steps we need to take.
100%. And listen, I go back to that. If we feel that, we use the remainder of the season to as make a good fist of it as we can, then fantastic. Whether he's the manager or not, grand. But I come back to that point regarding the utilisation of our youth talent, being able to bring in some of that. And I'm not saying for a minute that we're going to unearth a diamond that will become, a Rangers legend. By Christ, I hope they do, and I'll be behind them every step of the way if they are. But at the same point as well, if we feel that these are potential assets that we can sell on, then grand. But there has to be wholesale changes, and the manager has to be able to buy into that. He has to be able to show degrees of flexibility, which I don't believe he's shown before. And if he wants to try something new and he gets some joy out of it, then grand. But sticking to the same old routine and the same old habits, well, you can see how far it's got us at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Cammy, thank you very much.
No, thank you, my friend. Always a pleasure.
And thanks to our executive producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers. And I'd just like to take this time as we head into the new year to thank every one of you who listens into the show regularly. We are aware that there's a lot of other options out there, not just to do with Rangers, on your time. And we do appreciate you spending this bit of time with us every week. It is very, very much valued by me and all the team here. And we'd like to take this opportunity to wish you a wonderful Hogmanay, if you are celebrating it, and a fantastic 2025. Let's hope that it's a bit better for our side. and that this goes down as an anus horribilis, and I use the term anus proper. It has been an arsehole of a year, but we always have the future to look forward to. And at this time of year, I'm reminded that the most important things in the world are health, family, and friendship. And being part of this community is still very, very special indeed. Hopefully, the team can start to give us a wee bit more to cheer about, but I'm still very proud to be a Bear. Thanks for listening, folks, and I'll talk to you again in the new year. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.